This week's sponsors are Adapt Scaffolding Limited. For all your scaffolding commercial and domestic needs throughout Merseyside and the Northwest, get in touch with Brian McElhinney or Dave Moorcraft. All the details will be in the description. Please give them a follow. Thank you.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Billy Moore podcast, and today's special guest is Dean Garnett. How are you, Dean?
I'm alright, mate. I'm ready for take two.
Good to see you. So, we're in your gym. Do you want to tell us a little bit about where you're from, how it all started, and then we'll get into it?
Yeah. So you're at me gym now, Aspire Combat Sports Academy. Been here 6 years, mate. Been doing MMA for 13 years, I think it's 14 years in September this year. Grew up in Speak like yourself, mate, from the same ends.
The same ghetto, lad.
The same ghetto, yeah. But as you know, mate, you learn a bit about yourself in places like that, don't you? You're raised a little bit wise, with a little bit of common sense, aren't you? Usually, anyway.
Did you go to school and Speak?
I went to St Ambrose Primary School.
Yeah, I went to St Ambrose.
Yeah.
Green shorts and grey shorts and green tops.
Green jumper.
Yeah, but then I had to go to like St John's in Garston, and I was fucking like, I got a hard time then.
Yeah, my fellow would let me go there. End up going to Witness.
Did you?
School. A lot of the kids from Ambrose started going to the Witness schools because they didn't have the right postcodes to get like SFX or St Margaret's. But I was fairly bright anyway, to be honest. So I ended up going up there. But obviously that was difficult as well because we were isolated and a lot of the lads got expelled. There's only 2 of us left in the end.
Was that where you were born in Speak?
Born in Speak, lived in Australia when I was about 2 till I was about 5. Came back and then
back to Speak elsewhere.
Back to Speak for a few years and then was on Penny Lane, Allen Ways for like 9 years or something.
So that's your roots anyway, isn't it?
Speak's my roots, yeah. So yeah, defo, that's your heritage, innit? So, but yeah, it's one of them places, mate. You grow up, you're a bit more wise to the world, aren't you? You're a bit more savvy, and I think that's probably what led me to MMA. To be honest, do you know what I mean? I had quite an old-fashioned old fella, and had loads of fights growing up in Speak. So to finally put some of that negative energy really is what it is, and anger. I think I was an angry young person, me.
Yeah, I think that's where most of my fights started. You know, whether it was in school or on the streets or at home with my siblings, you know, and there was a lot. Speak had a lot to answer for back then, like you know, it was like a city within the city.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? It was big on the global drug trade a lot, weren't it, mate? Speak itself, not just Liverpool, but Speak itself. So yeah. And
it was like there was a few boxing clubs back then. I don't know if you had.
I went to Gemini, boxed to the Gemini.
There was the Gemini, but it was the St Ambrose ABC when I started. So this is way before your time. I've shown me age here. It was the St Ambrose ABC, and then I was there when it got sponsored by the Gemini. I think it was Gemini Furniture at the time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so they sponsored us. So we went from a green kit because we was green kit.
So that was originally the St Ambrose boxing club, eh?
St Ambrose, and then we went into Gemini, which was like a light blue.
Yeah,
bit of grip.
Blue,
and over the road there was a Speak Boys.
That another boxing club was it as well,
yeah. So I don't know what happened to them anyway. They kind of like
still going, the Gemini though, and Speak, innit?
Yeah,
nice
still going strong.
Nice to see, mate. But
so MMA and the fights that you had, is this kind of like something that you went down, you wanted to do? Because it was like...
Well, I think as a young person, mate, I wanted to get into MMA more than anything for me ego, and like, so people thought I was a tough guy. That's probably what I can't lie. That when I look back at 19-year-old me, that's probably was my biggest motivation. Do you know what I mean? But as you know, combat sports is the opposite of that, isn't it? It breeds the opposite of that. It smashes the ego. It humbles people.
Especially when you get beat.
Exactly, and that's what happens when you come into a gym for the first time. You can't play the piano until you get piano lessons. I don't care how hard you think you are. You can't fight until you learn. It's a science. Do you know what I mean? And if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get fucked up, aren't you?
Because all it was growing up was headlocks.
That's it. Yeah, and now, a lot of people know jiu-jitsu. You know, there's lads who train in the gym who don't look They don't look handy, they don't sound handy, but they'll twist you up in knots without breaking a sweat. Do you know what I mean? And again, it's not just that, to be honest, mate. As well as it leveling me, it gave me a purpose. It allowed me to, because again, we look at society. I'm off on one already. We look at society, mate, and we look at how sport is used to almost extract the masculine, the divine masculine, and use it in a way that serves no purpose to society. So the divine masculine is all about providing, protecting. You know, we're master builders. That, like, just generally the way masculinity is being slowly eroded. Like, people think a masculine man, someone who just smashes steroids, drinks loads of ale and goes and watches the match. That's the opposite of it to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they've really destroyed masculine values, and I think for me, fighting has really restored them in me properly. It's brought me sense of masculinity back to its sort of divineness of wanting to do the right thing. And I think that's important more than ever right now.
See, I was looking at something a couple of years ago called ACE, which was Adverse Childhood Experiences, and they were talking about male masculinity. Now, I had an interview with Channel 4 a few years ago, and it kind of like fucking laid right into me. But the camera, right, tuned right in onto me, and as you can see, it's being bit off, right? So that was it. They were talking about like a review on the movie, and how I was a thug, and how could I be a role model in society? This is what it was saying. How could I be a role model in society? You know, after this film's portrayed violence, and I said, look, this film, it's a fact. It's factual. It's not like based.
Not glorifying it.
Yeah, it's not glorifying. It's not solely based on my life story. It's called, like, you know, that's what it says. It's based.
Yeah, based in truth.
But yeah, dude, someone was like brought that up about male masculinity, which was important to me, because I had that attitude growing up, you know, where I seen my dad do what he did, you know, around my family and my mum and stuff, and it was quite volatile.
Same, mate. That's what I had.
We talked about like dysfunction, right? Now, like my household at the time was more dysfunctional than The Simpsons. You know, it was like there was a lot going on. You know, there was no empathy, there was no compassion, there was no love. What there was, my mum tried to divide between 6 of us, but because she was busy working, she found it really difficult. So I grew up pretty quick. You know, I was an adult from the age of like 12, I must have been. You
mirror in my upbringing, mate.
Yeah.
You know, my ma had 4 of us to raise, had 3 jobs. My old fella was very old-fashioned, very volatile, very angry, often violent at times, you know, when we were younger. So, very similar upbringing, mate. By 14, I had a CV saying I was 17, handing it in bars in town. I got a job in Slater's bar. It was a classy. By 15, I worked on the bar. When I was still in secondary school, I was going to the 05 on the Sunrise. My 15th birthday was a night out in the 05 one. So, like you, mate, I grew up quick around all what's going on, drugs, violence, organised crime. But I never jumped into none of that head first. I was always still hard working, realised I needed a bit of an education. But yeah, it's very similar routes, mate, to be honest.
See, the pathways that we've had, you know, like you said, they are similar. But what is it that snaps within us that takes us down a different path? Because obviously you've chose, you know, a positive way of living, where I was like, I think I just got drawn into that negativity, and I felt myself being attracted to standing on corners and finding like friends and family with peers in the streets. Yeah. You know, and then it became, you know, you conditioned then, aren't you?
Well, I'll go back to choice theory, right? And this is something I've been taught on a course with developing youth practice as part of some of the programs we run at the gym. And there's 5 basic needs: love and belonging, self-power and self-worth, fun and enjoyment, survival and health, and freedom. Now, if we look at MMA in this gym, or the gangs that you were, the life that they both tick the 5 basic needs. When you come to the gym, you're with all the lads, and there's girls in here who train, you're with everyone. It's like your community, it's like the family feel, and that's what you get from them circles as well. You get self-power, self-worth, because you just feel more important, you feel valued, you know, you feel part of something. You get your fun and enjoyment when you're out causing a ruckus and up to no good, or we get our fun and enjoyment when we're battering each other, inspiring. You get your freedom because you're expressing how you feel. Again, you know, when we come to the gym, we're away from the rest of society, and you know, you're expressing yourself when you're involved in organised crime. It's the same thing. And then obviously, you know, survival and health, it's paying, it's how you're living. So what we have to look at is, you know, how we meet our basic needs. And where you went one way and I went the other, I think it's a case of the role models around at that time. Yeah. It's hopefully you're in the right place at the right time. If the right person who might have been a drug dealer had put their arm around me at 18, 17, before I found MMA, that was a time when I was very impressionable. And again, a lot of young men have like a bit of an identity crisis. Like I remember bringing a group of kids here, 10 kids, from like a sort of pupil referral unit, and they refused to take the North Face coats off. I'm not lying, I had to do BJJ with them, all in North Face coats, and that really, it's on for me. That's not a coat, that's a uniform.
Yeah.
And if they take that off, they're not in the firm. So, you know, I think that's why we do what we do here, mate. We do a lot of community stuff. We do a lot of stuff around education, employability, and that's what's motivated me, is realising this, is that as someone who's a professional fighter, I have that influence over kids, young people. So it's nice to be able to try and use that in a positive way at the gym, and you know, help them meet them basic needs. In that big theory, choice theory, as well as having your 5 basic needs, you've got your quality worlds, and that's made up by your 4 Ps, right? Which is your people, your places, your pastimes, and your possessions. So mine is, the people is mainly everyone in the gym. That's where I spend most of my family's in Australia, so this is my family for the time being. Your places, well, mine's the gym, yours was the street corner. Which one's it going to be? Do you know what I mean? Your pastimes, well, mine's training, and yours at the time is maybe getting up to some mischief. Mine was at one point, but I'm glad I've shifted lanes. And then the last one's your possessions, which obviously are a bit less relevant. But again, it's all about how you create your quality world. It's going to determine how you meet your needs. And when one of them needs isn't met, then we end up in crisis, whether it's physical disease, mental disease, or whether it's just leading you into desperation.
I think it's something like similar to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it? So you got, you know,
basically that, but more humane. You know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Don't get up in the morning, but I've got me air, I've got me water, I've got me shelter. Yeah. That's a bit inhuman. We live in a time where
they're like basic needs that you should be.
They're basic. I mean, it does go all the way down to self-actualization, like, and self-realization or whatever. So it is still dead relevant, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but that's, when you look at it from the way I've just put it down in choice theory, it's more relatable, especially to a young person anyway. And it allows you to ask questions and find out what is the quality world, how are the needs being met, or aren't they being met. And you know what, I remember them saying, look, if you ever come across a kid who's in a gang, and that kid is dependent on the gang, then it's not your place to say, leave the gang. If that's his safety, that's his security net, he needs the gang until we have a new established quality world. So someone like myself who's in a mentor capacity, my job then is not to demonise the gang. It's not to try and remove the gang completely, but it's about offering an alternative to the gang. And you only do that by giving people better aspirations and broadening the horizon, which is why the gym's called Aspire, Combat Sports Academy. So
I was like going back to like when you were talking about role models growing up. You know, for me, and I was thinking as you were talking, you know, did I have a role model? And the role model I had, and I don't know if you remember him, his name was John Naylor, right?
John Naylor, of course I know John Naylor. John, he was my role model for a while.
Oh, John, right? He was like, he looked like he'd been around the block for a good few years when I first met him. You know what I mean? I was only like a small kid, and I joined the boxing club, and I never got offered a fight. You know, you go and then there's no fight on the cards, and then I was going to leave, and I was in Speak Bats. And it was attached then, the gym to the bats. And there was a little gym in the sports centre, and I was in there, and John came in one evening and went, right, get ready, you'll be fighting on Wednesday. And he was the only one at the time that believed in me, you know. And it was because it was that time where I was thinking, I'm going to walk away from this. I'm not going to come back because I felt like, look, I'm not good enough. No one's offered me an opportunity to box. But he said, I was waiting for you to be ready, you know, and I feel that you are ready. And, you know, and that was a good little journey that we were on. Yeah, enjoyed.
You've just mirrored another story of me and John there. So I started when I was 8 in the gym, And by the time I was 11, I'd been there for years. I thought I was a tasty little boxer, but like you, he hadn't said get your medical done.
Yeah.
So I was questioning myself, but I was in a group with about 10 of us who we must have, in my head, we were all on the cusp of fighting.
Yeah.
We were all sparring with some of the lads who'd had fights, but then none of us had medicals. One day we were all upstairs training, he come up and he stopped us training. And he just went, you're getting a medical, you are, and you're not. And here's why. So that just came out of nowhere. But then I was tiny. I was like the smallest kid in my class. And they could never get me fights. I did get a few in the end, but like I was waiting for 6 months. I'd turn up at this, they take me to shows, open, something might pop up for me.
Yeah.
It just never ever happened for me. End up like a couple of times having to do exhibition bouts with lads from the same club. Just to get me some experience, because I just couldn't get fights because I was tiny. And that's probably what pushed me out of it. At 11, 12 I left it. And I didn't get back into MMA for 7 years later.
So you've done more than just boxing and MMA. I'll say that wrong. MMA, you know what I mean? But you've done more than just that, haven't you? You're like, you're quite intelligent. I found that from the last podcast when you were talking about like etymology and numerology and philocracy, and there's a lot that you knew that you're quite equipped with an education.
What you've got to look at, right, is there's two types of intelligence for me. There's academic intelligence, which is more centered around regurgitation. And my uncle used to get me out of bed when I was in year 5 and make me write out like textbooks on geography, and I didn't even have a geography exam. So like one of the things me and my uncle had this for all through my life was being forced to do all year round exam revision. Like insane, to be honest. But I did perform fairly well academically as a kid, you know what I mean? I'd done A-levels, I went to uni. But as I got to like 18, 19, the desire to be involved in education wasn't there, because there was no real love or passion for it. I did biology, A-level, psychology, things that I'm probably got more interest in again now as I've got older, and I've realised, hang on, it's all dead relevant, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested in academics, but then there's the other side, on top of the regurgitation, which I feel like I'm developing more, and I feel like this is what people who are often academically intelligent have zero of, and that's a bit of critical thinking skills and an open mind and being able to look at it another alternative view. People don't realise how well reinforced their narratives and behaviours are. They think they're thinking for themselves. They think because they've got a piece of paper from authority saying X, Y and Z means X, Y and Z, it definitely means X, Y and Z. But you have to look at the education system and society. We use behaviour management the same way a dog trainer uses it. Do you know what I mean? We reward kids for being compliant, for regurgitating correctly. If you're really good at regurgitating, you can be a doctor. We'll put letters after your name. Yeah, you can be on a pedestal. We'll get everyone to clap for you. You can be on 150 grand a year. You can be responsible for people's lives. So, and this is never me digging out people who are academic. It's never that. It might seem like that, but I appreciate these people always have the right intentions. I don't doubt their intentions, and this is where the system's most powerful with deception is. As humans, we have an aura, especially I think people like from places like Speak, we have good emotional intelligence, and we know when someone's intentions are good or bad. Our bullshit radar is pretty strong. So when you've got someone approaching you, maybe from the medical establishment, giving you certain advice, it might be the right advice for you, but there's times when it's not, and history's proven that. But the person on the other end asks no questions. Why not? Because the other person was a doctor, they were a scientist.
So that label sort of gives them the permission to...
Do you know about the Stanley Milgram experiment?
No,
I don't think we talked about this on the last podcast. We didn't. Well, it was in 1963. Stanley Milgram said, like, they lied to us about everything, right? The reason they gave for doing the experiment was a lie. They said they'd done it to measure.
Is this all documented?
It's all documented. You can watch the black and white videos of it on my IGTV.
Yeah.
I won't mention anything today that's not on my Instagram. I know people go, Instagram not a source, but like, no, it's fucking it's reference stuff. Like, but you know what the pseudos are like. They need it on the Gov website, and they want it spoon fed to them. But anyway, what Stanley Milgram did to apparently test compliance to authority in wartime and thinking about Nazi soldiers executing people, they done this experiment, right? They put an ad out. They were going to pay you like £5 or whatever it was back in 1963. You had to come down, and the experiment was about memory, right? So me and you turn up, I'm an actor, you're not an actor, I am, you don't know I'm an actor. Go in, some fella's there in a white lab coat, Stanley Milgram. So guys, you're here today for the experiment. Randomly, I'm going to pick one of you to be the questioner and one to be the answerer. You get picked to ask the questions, I get picked to answer them by design. Anyway, you have to sit there going like cat, dog, brown, yellow, and then I have to memorise and regurgitate. And you're looking at like a panel. It's got like switches going all the way up to like 240 volts. Yeah. You can't physically see me, but you can hear me. So they've got this actor in the room tied up. He's getting the first few right because they're easy, but before you know, he's going, ow! Every time he gets the signs like proceed, you must shock him. And then he's like, ow! You know what I mean? You would believe it if you rallied in for it, right? Anyway, it starts getting like halfway through and he's like, get me out! I've had enough, get me out! I've got a heart problem. And they're all like, he's got a heart problem. You should watch, this is the real footage. Not actors, they're like crying and that. Some of them are crying. Yeah. And he just goes, you must continue. You must continue. Nearly all of them. A few of them don't, but the majority go right up to 240 volts. Right? Soon as it's over, like some of them are asking questions and there's no response. At this moment, they already think he's dead or unconscious, and the scientists just nodding at him, and he's just like that, murdering the person, right? So after it, they sit them down and go, why did you do that? And they go, you're a scientist, a government scientist. So what that was to test how easily we'll remove agency for morality, logic, and thought, and compliance to obedience. Will we just relinquish responsibility? And that's what people do now with this pandemic. Look at what people are doing now with this pandemic. You've got people walking around, like I've shared this post the other day, some guys posted saying like, I'm double jabbed, I've been social distancing, wearing my mask everywhere, carrying hand sanitizer, and now I've got a cold. Turns out I've tested positive for COVID. Idiot. The reason he's got COVID is because he's double jabbed, wearing a mask, hand sanitizers which are toxic. Even the mainstream media's admitted all this, and he's not even socialising with people, right? It progresses to pneumonia. Do you know what I mean? Now he's got COVID, pneumonia, and he says,
and is this all documented?
This is on this guy's Twitter. He said, he's being serious. He's like, I'm managing, but I'm mostly pissed off that someone else wasn't following the rules. So none of the responsibility's on him. Meanwhile, he hasn't realised, like, for the narrative to be real and to do everything he's done, you shouldn't be able to get corona or whatever it is he's got. He should be safe, healthy. But obviously, that's a
he's avoided taking responsibility for those.
What he's doing, to me, that's avoiding taking. That's the opposite of taking responsibility. You think you're taking responsibility, but you're not. Only you can take responsibility for your health. You can't have someone tell you on the telly. If you're taking responsibility for your health today during a pandemic, you will be eating well, exercising. If you are obese, which is the main mark, you'll be tackling your obesity. You wouldn't wear a mask on your face, and if you did, you'd change it every hour at least. And if you did, it'd be a proper big, fucking surgical mask, something decent anyway. Not what most of some of the people I see them wearing masks, mate, they got food stains on them and everything. They're literally petri dishes for bacteria. This is like year 6 science. This is child level science. Then you look at the chemicals in the sanitizer. This is not conspiracy theory. They actually increase your chances of, they attack the immune system. Yeah. So, it blows my mind that people actually think that's a responsible citizen. Done none of his own research, hasn't questioned anything he's being told. He thinks the mainstream science is separate from the mainstream media. Again, I know 12-year-olds who at this point in their lives appreciate that there's a lot of corrupt lies going on. And profit's a big thing. Like, I know kids whose parents have taught them that. Like that. Do you?
Well, we've just seen it recently, haven't we, on the news where
Matt Hancock.
Yeah,
that was staged.
That was
staged. Listen, if you think that was real, you don't understand how the system works.
Tell us.
That man has gave contracts out to his friends, right? He's bumped us. He's rolled out a genocidal unicorn, right? That's got no long-term safety data on it. It's had no animal trials. It's liability free, and he's rolled that out on the population. He's took responsibility. Like, that's final solution gear to me. That's how skeptical I am and cynical of everything that's happening now, and I was before it even started.
Well, now it's even
as I predicted it. And then, so what you got to think about, right? That guy is committed death penalty worthy crimes, in my opinion. You know, if it was up to me, he'd see the gallows for what he's done to society, isolating elderly. Then basically, midazolam. We put all the elderly on midazolam and killed them off in the care homes while we protected the NHS. We put DNRs on the elderly and empty hospitals. Don't care what anyone says. This is the facts, mate. This is undeniable facts at this point. So that guy should be hanging. Meanwhile, he's resigned and now he's a backbencher for necking someone. They're mocking us, mate. They're actually mocking you.
Throwing the lips on someone.
Throwing the lips on someone. So that's like saying, that's like you being responsible for mass. Imagine you'd moved 100 kilos of cocaine into the UK and you've decided to hand yourself in for having half a spliff in your pocket. That's what Matt Hancock's done. And you've got people celebrating and you're just like, and who's lined up behind them? An even more well-connected puppet from the Davos agenda, the World Economic Forum puppet. So, yeah, it just...
So you got like the way you think and stuff. It's quite intriguing. But you know when we were talking about like I said to you earlier on Maxine, is it Maxwell? Ghislaine Maxwell, and you said she's and Epstein are not in prison. Why would you think that?
Because that's not how the system works. Ghislaine Maxwell
she's up in November.
Yeah, it's all fake, all of it. Again, it's similar. That is like the Matt Hancock thing. It's staged. They're guilty of heinous crimes with child murder, torture, rape, procuring children for the elite. That's what Aaron Epstein do, what Savile did. It's the same role. Heinous crimes anyway. I hope no listeners chime in and defend these people because they do on the Leggett podcast. Like, it's mad. Some of the people in the comments, like, they chime in attacking me for calling people like this out, but it's insanity. But anyway, Ghislaine's dad is like, he's like Robert Maxwell. I forgot where he was connected to now, but when you look at the...
He was I recently watched, a documentary. I haven't finished it yet, but Robert was like, he come from nothing, right? He was Jewish. He was very poor, became a billionaire, started to build up his empire with newspapers. It was the news of the world, was it? And then it was, then it was like the Daily Post in America or something like that. Yeah,
but again, I question a lot of these narratives about these being self-made billionaires. I don't believe they are anymore.
So if you buy like papers back in the day, especially, right, you can portray whatever you want.
You can do it today, mate.
Yeah, you can do it today.
But even more so then.
Because you haven't got the
internet for people to fact check.
So everything's like paperwork.
Yeah, and it's much easier to control the paper trail. But that's why they're censoring.
That's
why they deleted our last video.
Even watching him, right, like that, like Maxwell, which was interesting. That he killed himself, which.
Well,
why would you do that?
Let me explain something to you, right? There's always at least 3 narratives, okay? And what the controllers of this realm are excellent when it comes to narrative control. What you've got to remember is human behaviour is motivated by the narrative that you prescribe to. So if you can control the narrative, you can control perception. If you control perception, you control behaviour. That's the ultimate control. So when you have anything that's going on, you throw anything at me now and we'll be able to piece this together. You have the lie, you have the controlled up narrative, which is always strong and convincing, and it implicates them. And then you have the truth, which is just too often just too much to believe.
So why do you feel that we or anybody in particular can't discuss what they believe without it being...
You just explained it to me. So, as you said before, in the past, they could control the paper trail.
Yeah.
And by controlling the narrative, they control behaviour. So when people like me and you are talking about things that doesn't fit in with their narrative, then they now need to remove that information. And again, if you look at Biderman's coercion model, which is a psychological model used to break down prisoners' will and brainwash them, obviously censoring alternative information is massively important. And if you don't do that, then you're not going to be able to control people's behaviour in the way that you want it to. So you know, that's exactly why we were censored, mate, because in a time like this, in a time of mass deceit, you need to control everything, and that's what we're going to see more and more of. The censorship's going to increase. We're seeing lots of great pages who share great information on Instagram being removed. I'm seeing now they've got a thing where you follow people and it says like, are you sure you want to follow this person? They share unreliable information when you follow people who have accounts like mine. Do you know what I mean?
That's what people...
That's what they've started doing now on some of the... So I'm sure my accounts will have that soon. I'm shadow banned. If you put Dean G, I won't come up. You know, Dean Gaffney comes up before me, even if you follow me. Like,
so
why?
what does it mean to be shadow banned?
It just means that instead of deleting you, where you can challenge what... Because they can't prove that you've lied. So what they do is someone from Facebook's come out recently and he's gone public with this. They haven't told us this, but they've got something now called a VH score, and that means vaccine hesitancy score, and it's got nothing to do with misinformation. They don't care if the information's true. If it's true, it's still got to go. Anything that incites vaccine hesitancy or makes you question vaccines now is to be removed, even if it's the facts. Do you know what I mean? So you can't even have factual information out there now that challenges the narrative.
And that's what I mean. You've got to be really mindful about like what you're saying, especially on a podcast, because it's it's so easy to be taken down and
cancelled culture.
Cancel culture.
Yeah, and demonetising people who are doing great journalism, really.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? At times, not just podcasts. It's people who are doing journalism getting censored as well. So. Yeah. It's worrying, mate. That's one of the things that scares me the most. And the more I learn, like, nearly everything I believed as a kid, I now see as being a mistruth. It's not always a complete lie. Like, some of the lies are, like, reverse engineered. They're actually quite close when you find out the truth. They're, like, almost mirror images of the truth. The truth, but not quite the truth. So, they are masters of, like, you know, manipulating what we believe to be the facts. And obviously with the age of the internet and the age of information now, censorship's going to become more and more vital to them. Like, I'm probably not going to have an Instagram for long, do you know what I mean? Surely that'll be gone within 6 months, the rate some of the others are going.
Yeah, there's a few that's been taken down, I believe. I've seen
and
heard, you know, spoke to a few people that have had their pages taken down.
Yeah, and YouTube channels, and it's wrong, mate, isn't it? Because again, people are making livings out of this, and it doesn't matter what information you're sharing unless that information is actually damaging to someone. And I'm talking like sharing information about a child or that's wrong. But other than that, we should have free speech. If someone wants to accuse me of talking shite, that's okay. That's your right to have that opinion, and I should have the right to question the government narrative. And if what I'm saying about the government narrative, other people might take it as true, well, that's up to them. We should be looking at all the information.
I think what was the most concerning on the last podcast is they were talking about medical kind of like your medical view. You know, you're not you haven't got the skills, so to speak, to be talking about that stuff.
Yeah, but they're already the censoring.
We can't really go down that route, can we?
No, but we should be able to, because
we should be able to, yeah. But we can't.
But the problem is, mate, Robert Malone invented mRNA technology. He's being censored. He's the inventor of the technology in the unicorn, and yet they've changed Wikipedia so he doesn't look like the inventor anymore, or one of the inventors. And they're trying to deplatform him. Can you be any more qualified than being the inventor or one of them?
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly. So, and what you've got to remember, mate, is we're talking about a product that we're expected to take. We're expected to take this product, and yet we're not allowed to openly discuss it.
So yeah, but how did you get on it with the Leggett podcast? You know, you had the.
I don't know.
Imagine it's no issues there.
No.
Fuck, as soon as you come on mine, mate, it's like let's.
Maybe like they've intensified the algorithms more recently on new videos or something. Yeah,
because that's what you said, and it wasn't someone actually going through it.
No,
physically, it was all algorithms.
Yeah, it's AI. It's not. I don't think there's a person sitting there deciding which
videos
to
be
pull
too
down.
Much for them,
no, it's all AI. I think all this censorship's going to be software driven eventually.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like reporting stuff and mentioning. Yeah, I had a message right the minute I put a little trailer of you up. I got a message of someone saying, "Oh, you better be careful about what you put up with him." Blah blah blah. And this person's said a few things in the past, and I thought, you know what? This is like an hand grenade. This individual's like an hand grenade every time they dislike something.
Well, they're all probably alright sitting at home nodding their heads to Matt Hancock.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's his overlord. No, they're not my overlord. So, sound, you don't have to listen to me. But these are people who couldn't even debate me. They couldn't. The things I have know about and I've looked into, that might not be true, but at least I've took the time to go and research them.
Well, that's what I mean. You've done a lot of research, haven't you? So you know, I like what you were talking about, say, on the last podcast about the etymology. That was really and the numerology.
Yeah, it's in everything, mate. I think I feel like I learn something about etymology every day.
People like said that to someone this morning. We'll talk a little bit about that. What the fuck? It's gone over his head. So explain a little bit for us.
Let's recap what we talked about last time. Well, again, I think Saturn is Satan, and even Saturn in Latin is linked. So I think that like there's just clues everywhere. The controllers of our realm, one of the biggest secrets that they hold from us is all about sound. The power of sound resonance and free energy, and its relationship with free energy. Again, I won't go into none of that because it's too much. The people with the hand grenade there, he can't even fathom Matt Hancock's full of shit. Never mind that we've got access to free energy that they're hiding from us, so they can that just throws too many people off. But so what you have to think about is the power of sound. If sound is as powerful as I think it has, then the spoken word has meaning. Like if you think about spelling. Writing, spelling, who cast spells on people? Witches. That's what they call it, spelling. And we broadcast movies, and we're going to broadcast this podcast. Well, what do you cast? You cast spells, broadly. And that's what your TV's doing. And even your television. It's in the language, television. And, you know, the word Hollywood, it's called Hollywood because a magic wand that you use to cast spells is made from Hollywood. So it's all about casting spells on us, literally, and controlling us, and that's why you get up and you say, "Good morning," every morning when you wake up, and you're, "All right, mate, good morning." And you're saying, "Good grieving, good grieving, mate. Happy grieving." That's what I'm wishing people when I say good morning. I say grand rising now.
You say what? Time rising?
Grand rising.
Grand rising.
Grand rising. What rises? The sun. We rise like the sun. So I think the way you use language about yourself is dead important. So we get up, we say good morning. What do you do when you wake up? What is a wake? It's a party for who?
The dead.
Who are we? We're the walking dead. Why are we the walking dead? Because when we die we're corpses, and when we're alive we're used as corporate entities through our legal name fraud, our straw man. Mr. Dean Garnett is legal fiction. I'm Dean of no surname, or Dean of the family Garnett, that's who I am.
That's what they say, isn't it?
Yeah, so you know, where was I there?
Dean of the family Garnett.
Yeah, so you know, they even get us with that. You think about the weekend. Why is it called the weekend? What are you after a hard week in work? Your weekend. And that's why it's called the week. Because it's where you go to get weak. You get weak all week. In a weekdays, because you're in a days to be working 50 hours a week to earn a living. Where'd you put your ashes when you die? In an urn. So yeah, it's all fucking slave code, mate. And you know, you grow up, you find a partner, and you have a kid, which makes you what? Parents. Well, what are you a pair of? You get a gaff and you pay rent, or you get a mortgage, which is death pledge. Mortgage pledge in Latin. So your mortgage is your death pledge. This is just never ending. Like a soldier, first 4 letters are sold. Use the D, i.e. sold, die. It's fascinating, mate. Do you know
it is, yeah, it is. It's quite.
There's none of our words are chosen by chance. None of them. There is no random word in our language.
So the language that we have, that we use,
it's been developed by a very, very, very intelligent group of people, or whatever I don't even know the people. I know what I don't know, but
they say Latin's the language of the dead, right? Latin's the original, like, you know, we use Latin. and we don't even know that we're using it. You know, it's like French. We use French.
Yeah.
Cul-de-sacs. Yeah. You know.
Well, even like there's a French word. Oh, I forgot what it is now. Like you use it when something's renowned or so. It's something like that.
You don't say.
No, it's like an English word. Oh, bloody hell. Revered or something. It is like that anyway. But that's like French for like deceit. Oh, that'll come back to me. It's how you like describe like a top university or something. But anyway, I think the one I was on before was corporation. Corpse dead, oration is to speak. And that's why they call us the walking dead, and that's why we have maritime law, because under maritime law they have us down as being lost at sea and not being flesh and blood on land. Again, so even like the underpinnings of the legal system, it's all based on this. Because it's all about...
So where do you think this all comes from? Where it goes
back to Babylon, mate. Like I'm not sure on our true history. What does history spell? His story.
Yeah.
I'm not sure our history is right.
It's not a her story, is it?
No, it's his story. And whose story? Who's he? Who is he? I want to know. Because it's not the story. It's his story. And I'm not sure about the timeline that we're being fed. I'm not sure. I think even if you look at some of the buildings that are apparently made in the 17 and 1800s, mate, they just don't look like they fit a society without power tools. Something's not right about what we've been told about, where we come from, who we are, where we're going. And the best way to describe this, mate, if you imagine life's a game, right? And you can get some of the opposing teams not to know the rules of the game. You're gonna smash the game, aren't you? You're gonna take over the game. And I think what's happened is we've ended up with some sort of cabal of powerful people who control everything. And I don't just mean resources. They control what most people think. They control what we believe. You know, they control what we think we know. They control how we see the future. The government recently put a publication out, Human Augmentation. Have you seen it?
No.
It's a DNA strand with a human hand and a robot hand. And it's like fucking 100 pages long, talking about merging us with AI. And I just think people need to wake up and smell the coffee, because do they honestly think this unicorn rollout is to do with a respiratory virus with a 99% survival rate? I actually believe that. Why didn't the government lock you down in 2018? Like, there's places in America where people are like can't even afford insulin. They're missing life-saving medicine because it's too expensive. And yet we're rolling out a unicorn for it. Mate, they're talking about the cats and the dogs. Have you seen that?
No.
In the mainstream media? Labour Party saying we need to start looking at people's pets.
There was something, I heard something about that.
True story. And I actually used to say that joking. I wasn't sure they'd go after the pets. So,
were they saying that like a lot of pets were being born during the pandemic? And now they've kind of like...
Yeah, but they want to vaccinate the pets, mate. Like, can you imagine taking your dog for a CV unicorn?
Why would you do that?
Bizarre. They're saying they'll stop the spread of variants. Fucking scariants, more like.
Scariants.
And again, look, I don't prescribe to the virology narrative in the way that I did for most of my life, for 95% of my life. This is very new to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? I was well into it for the first year of this pandemic. It's just seeing new information presented in a new way, engaging my brain, observing what's actually happening, going back and looking at the history of the science. I can talk to you about some of the fathers of virology. Do you know what I mean? You know, Louis Pasteur, Robert Koch. That's another guy, I forgot his name. First guy to make vaccines was Edward Jenner back in the 1500s. I know that I've got a brief understanding of the history and the context, and even the way they've proven these things to exist. It's fraudulent. It's all fraudulent. Even one of these guys' grandsons has released a secret book where he's half admitted it, but it's going under the radar. You know, so...
Are these all like you talk about like the antibiotics in the early days and the stuff like...
No, I'm like, that's all real. What I'm talking about here is how, like, we had obviously real developments in medicine, like antibiotics, but then we also had fictional things like viruses. Like, they were covering up. They were basically... So let's use polio as the example. Again, if you go on my page, go to the polio highlight. Don't go with Instagram. The actual research papers. And if you're not a lazy, willfully ignorant idiot, you'll type the title into Google and get the original scientific paper. So piss off anyone in the comments.
On polio.
It's on my highlights on my page, mate. Just click it and it's about 10 slides, all right? So when you want to say, like, epidemiologists, do you know what an epidemiologist is?
Skin, is something to do with
Well,
the skin?
not so much skin, but their job is to look at expressions of, like, symptoms. So they have to come along and say, yeah, this phenomenon is happening, people are getting sick,
Yeah.
right? So in terms of the epidemiology of polio, I'm not denying any of that. This is where people try and, like, what people do now is say, I'm now a polio denier. No, I'm not. Listen, like...
So you've done a little bit of research on polio because I watched something on a YouTube on a channel. It was about the man in the iron lung.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Well, it was 2, actually.
Yeah, so he was in it for years, wasn't he?
I mean, how the fuck you live like that, I don't know.
No.
This is, like, he's from a kid.
I've seen it.
That is not
normal.
It's not.
Well, let's talk about how you can possibly end up in that position and how that happens. Because even now they'll tell you, if you go on, they don't know how the virus does it. Anytime someone claims to have an answer but can't tell you the mechanism, you should be questioning it. Do you know what I mean? You can tell me them lights are on. You can give me a brief idea how they work. Briefly, can't you? The electricity goes to, like, the filaments, lights up the bulb, creates light, but the heat comes off because it's it's sound, there's the mechanism. They don't know, they've no idea. It's all a mystery. It's not a fucking mystery. They know full well what they're doing. And even before it happens, it's set up. So if you go on my page, you'll see, and again, anyone can Google this, you just have to type, anyone listening now, type it on your phone, lead, arsenic, pesticides. There'll be no denying anything I'm saying here at this point. They were spraying the food with lead arsenic. One of the brands was called Corona Dry. And guess how it kills the pests? How does it kill the pests? Paralyses them so they can't breathe. That's interesting, isn't it? So that's how lead arsenic pesticides work, mate. And if we think about lead, why do you think you'd have unleaded petrol? When it's called petrol?
You know.
Because they had to take the lead out. Why? Because the fumes from the cars were being breathed in by the children who were lower down in prams, and it was causing neurodevelopment issues in the brain, right? Because lead and other heavy metals, they destroy the nerves. They remove the myelin sheath from the nerves. So whether it's in your spine, your leg, your brain, your lungs, wherever it is, the nerves in that area, autonomous or, you know, the ones you choose to control, it's going to sever them and destroy them. So we spray the food with polio, and then we're going back to the fucking late 1800s, early 1900s.
Is this where they say like polio sort of come from, was like the lead?
No, they don't tell you that. This is all lies. Though they don't. What I'm saying here, right? People have to connect the dots. Polio comes from a virus, right? This is where polio apparently. But what I'm telling you now is lead, arsenic, pesticides around it just coincides with the start of the polio epidemics.
Yeah.
Right. So what is fact is that they sprayed that on the food for years, right? What is a fact is the mechanism that it was how it kills the pests, right? And these are also facts. To prove polio was a virus, you use something called Cox Postulates. And that was put together by Robert Koch, one of these bench scientists who's part of the cabal. Yeah, who's doing as he's told, in my opinion. He come up with these things like you've got to isolate the virus. And by isolation, if I said to you something's isolated, you'd mean on its own. What these guys are calling isolation is not isolation. They've never isolated any of these things. But what they done was they basically got 2 boys who had polio, so they were paralysed, had paralytic polio. And they said the virus in the gut, can't remember how they come up with this, but they decided the virus was in the gut, right? And they got some of their feces, shite, and injected it into the brains of mice. And they said, because the mice are paralysed, then the virus must be in the shit. Now, if you eat heavy metals like lead, you do absorb some of it into the body, but your gut is pretty good at extracting a lot of it. So where does that go? Into your what?
Into your bloodstream.
Into your shit.
Yeah.
Some into your bloodstream,
Yeah.
but some into your shit. A lot of it into your shit. So if you inject the mice with the shit, what else is in there with the shit? The lead. So the mice being paralysed by polio, they're being paralysed by lead. So then they said, right, yeah, got the virus. This is my opinion. What they did do that, the papers are on my page. So that's how they determined, they found the virus, and now they've proved it does the damage they think. So then they started a culture and that shit on a rhesus monkey kidney that they ground up. True story. They ran out of rhesus monkey kidneys because they killed 50,000 monkeys. So they got a HeLa cell from a girl called Henrietta Lacks, and that was a cervical cancer. Like, they took her cancer, like, she died at 36, but they removed the cervix and kept it growing, because if it's something's cancerous, it's tumorigenic, it's just gonna keep growing exponentially. So they were then using them cell lines to culture the virus and then injecting people with it. Now, when they filter the contents of these unicorns, it's called residual DNA. They admit that they can't filter everything out, because then they'll filter the virus, the synthetic or the attenuated virus out. So some of it has to get through. Now, as well as having the virus DNA, which I think is just something they fabricated, looking at your genomes and your exosomes, you've now got residual DNA coming in off the fucking rhesus monkey kidney, off the cervical cancer smear, or whatever it was, or whatever other cell lines that the MMR unicorn has MRC5 in. MRC5 is a lung fibroblast from a baby boy aborted in 1966, and they're still using that today. Like, I've been fact checked on that, and the fact check was like, no, that's not true. It's a clone of that boy. Right, okay. So injecting me with an aborted baby's clone on a genetic level, is that not the same thing?
Yeah.
If we think about biology and genetics, it's ridiculous. And this is like what this whole scenario's done as well, mate. It's actually made people question other unicorns. Do you know what I mean? People who've always believed unicorns save lives are now going, hang on, to do that with that one, what's going on with the others? If we were to plot a graph now of measles deaths from 1900 down to 1968, when we brought out the MMR unicorn, you'll see the death rate practically disappears before we bring the vaccine out. So what has it really done? But then, from then on, if we plotted another graph on the rise of autoimmunity, neurodevelopmental issues, things like eczema, stuff like that, SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, they all start to skyrocket, and they all correlate perfectly with the increase in unicorns. But the same people who are saying correlation doesn't mean causation when we look at the increase in chronic disease. Like, I think it was 12% of kids had a chronic illness before 1948. Post then, it's like 1 in 2's got one or more. That's not normal. We can't explain that, and no one cares. We're just carrying on as if that doesn't matter. Meanwhile, we're all terrified of the measles and the flu and these things that pretty, to people who take responsibility for their health, they're pretty benevolent, aren't they? They don't really do that much to you. And as we know, getting over these things can improve your immunity.
See, and do you know what, right? And I'll say this how it is for me anyway. I think there's a lot of like personal choice of like how you want to kind of manage your whole life, because what's happening now, it's without saying too much, it's like us against them.
They love that. They love the divide.
Let's divide, right? Now I see a lot of I read a lot of things on social media where it's like there's arguments from both sides. People who like each other now fucking can't stand each other, because they're going against something that they've gone for, and then people are like putting little posts on, well, I've had this unicorn and I've had double unicorns and blah 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 blah, right? And sort of like it brings about a lot of hatred,
conflict,
and conflict and anger, and then there's I got a friend, right? He goes to work, right, and he's worked in this place for a few years, and he watches all the podcast. I won't mention his name just because of like what he does in work. When he goes to work, and everybody has had the unicorn, right, and he hasn't. Now he said to me the other day, he said, I feel like I'm being ganged up here. He said, by all these, judging me, putting me down, telling me to wear this and wear that and wash this and wash that and avoid any kind of contact with them. he said to me, have you? And I said, well, I haven't, no. I said, that's just personal choice. I'd like to see what the outcome is first.
Yeah, wait till 2023 when the trials are over.
Yeah, let me see what the outcome is first.
And when you can get it live, when you can get paid out when you get injured.
Yeah. So that's my reasons anyway. But I just felt that like he felt like victimised, and a part of like someone who was the minority.
Well, that's the cult-like mentality of the other side.
Yeah.
They call us the cult. We just want free choice. We just want to be left alone. They're the ones telling us what to do. Meanwhile, they.
But by being left alone, by us wanting to be left alone, or by individuals.
There's nothing cult-like about wanting to be free.
Yeah, and by us being left alone or wanting to be left alone, that leaves like you are now irresponsible.
But that's just the scam now, isn't it?
So you're being irresponsible. My nan or my family member who's quite vulnerable or this, that and the other. No, you're being accused. You're basically.
But how are you irresponsible though when the vaccine doesn't stop transmission? I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Like, here's one. So asymptomatic, we know can't spread anything to anyone. Like I said, I'm pretty much believing contagion of viruses is a myth anyway. But let's pretend it's not for now, right? You're asymptomatic, which means you're healthy. You've got no symptoms, or at least you appear healthy. And they say how you do spread it is by sneezing and coughing. And I just think you're just coughing up all your damaged DNA that they swab you for. Whatever, might be wrong, right? But anyway, they're now saying if you have the vaccine, it can't stop you getting COVID, and it can't stop you transmitting COVID, but it can reduce your severe symptoms like a cough. So the reason it stops you spreading it is because you don't cough as much. Okay, so person A isn't vaccinated and he's got no symptoms, but he can spread something he hasn't got, even though he's not coughing. Person B has been injected with something, is coughing, but can't spread it, but it's only spread by a cough. But person A is not coughing, person B is, but he's not spreading, person A is. Like, who the fuck's buying this? And yet all them are walking around in work scared of him. Well, if they're scared of him, doesn't that mean the vaccine doesn't work? If they feel safe, he feels safer than them. They don't feel safe, he feels safe. What does that tell you? It doesn't add up, mate. This narrative is just based on fear porn and ignorance. It only makes sense if you don't think about it.
Yeah.
It does. It only makes sense if you don't think about it. Australia has shut down. I think they've had one death since January. Like, you know, COVID's not even, it's probably causing a death per every 10,000 people, right? The vaccine's probably causing more. We're locking the world down for a death per 10,000 people getting the flu symptoms, and yet we're making everyone take a unicorn that's got a higher kill rate probably, or not far off anyway. So again, you know, people at home need to be looking at the government website and looking at what's being reported. Have you had a look at it?
No.
It's called the MHRA, and whenever a medication is on the market, well, it's not a medication, by definition it's a biologic. A unicorn is a biologic. It's not classed as a medicine, which is why it gets to like cut a few corners on its safety studies. And I'm not talking about the recent safety studies. They've always done this. People think they haven't. They have. It's all the safety tested.
It's all rushed, isn't it?
It's all blag. It's all blag, mate. If you're going to test a unicorn that you're going to give to chilled babies, and you test it on its own against another unicorn instead of something like saline, then you're going to get dodgy data that says it's safe when it's not. It's only safe comparable to something else that's toxic. That's like getting 10 people, stabbing them all in the leg and shooting the others in the leg and saying, well, everyone who was stabbed in the leg survived. You know, one person died in each, so therefore it's safe. You know, it's getting stabbed safe and getting shot safe. They're about the same. So they're just raising the bar, aren't they, of what's safe? Well, that's not fucking safe. So, you know, even how they've tested all them, if people go back and look, they haven't done proper, they haven't studied in the way you would if like some of these children are getting 6 unicorns in one day, in one sitting, and they're not tested simultaneously. It's all right testing it when it's one at a time, but it's different if you're given 6 at a time.
Exactly. Let me see what it says, but we spoke about it. I haven't even got my glasses here, but I remember I sent you the message, right? And it was saying exactly what I said to you. let's get you up here, Dean. I always thought this was I sent you that on Insta, didn't I?
And look, while you're finding that out, what I will say is, the biggest one for me is no unicorns are tested for carcinogenicity, mutagenicity, or ability to impair fertility. Oh, they're all serious things, mate.
Okay, so, right, here we go. Hi, the All or Nothing podcast with Billy Moore, right? Yeah. Our team has reviewed your content and unfortunately we think that it violates our medical misinformation policy. So this is where we're going to be mindful on that one. We've removed the following content from YouTube: Dean, Garnett, conspiracy theories, social engineering, etymology and vaccines. Yeah, we know that this might be disappointing, but it's important to us that YouTube is a safe place for all. Yeah, if content breaks our rules, we remove it. If you think that we've made a mistake, you can appeal and we can take another look. Keep reading for more details. How your content violated the policy. YouTube doesn't allow claims about COVID-19 vaccinations that contradict expert consensus from local health authorities or the World Health Organization.
So basically that's just narrative control.
I thought I'd get that in just
it
because is an important because these are the reasons why we can't discuss or you can't.
But I'm not giving people medical advice, am I? I'm stating some facts and I'm giving my opinion on them facts.
Yeah.
People can research the facts. They don't have to agree with my opinions, but they can research what I'm saying. Like, it's not a secret that unicorns aren't tested for carcinogenicity. That's just a fact. That's not me giving medical advice. That's me stating. Just like your...
And that was highlighted, by the way, medical misinformation. When I read that the next morning, and because it was flying, it was doing really well. A lot of people were really interested in hearing your story and what you had to say. And I had loads of messages going, Bill, what happened, where is it? Even on like YouTube threads, that's up in different videos. What happened to the Dean Garnett video? Where's it gone? And the reality was it got taken down. Right now, that's what it stated: medical misinformation that was being.
Yeah, that was the reason.
That was the reason. Do you believe that to be true? Did we mention anything?
I mean,
was anything mentioned?
I gave some of my opinions, but I've stated where they're my opinions. Are we not allowed opinions? Again, we're talking about things that are factual, like the unicorn being in trials till 2023. That's not an opinion. That's a fact.
So everything like you you're stating here is like fact-based information.
I'm telling you when something's a fact, but I'm making my own opinions.
Your opinions and your views.
My views are based on several facts. People can go and confirm the facts. But again, I'm not giving people medical advice. I'm encouraging people to go and do their own.
Because I feel like that I've tried to talk, I'm going to be honest here, I've been really mindful about what I said and what you said. It's been really difficult.
I know.
And I don't like the way it's
feeling.
Because
feeling like, restricted, aren't we?
Yeah, I feel like I'm being like controlled in a sense of like what I say and what I don't say. And I want to let loose, but I don't really want to lose my channel.
Exactly. I'd hate you to get tough down, mate, for what I'm saying on here.
And I read something on I seen something on Andy Leggett's podcast about prior to releasing your video was the other guy, Tom Wickstead, is it? He's made an announcement saying everything that you said or everything is about what you speak about is your views and your opinions, and it might upset people. But yeah, it probably does.
Yeah, it does.
A lot of
people hate like people who are devoted to the narrative hate hearing anyone speak any different narrative.
So what, it's been like really...
They hate it. They send me like, they want you dead. They literally wish death on you, mate, because you question the likes of Matt Hancock and that, and Chris Whitty.
So they wish you dead, and that's...
Well, this is what I say. It is a cult. Scientism is the new age cult. You were talking about a lot of stuff on the last podcast, on the last podcast, which was I can't even remember. There was so much in it. You know what I mean? And I've never had that experience where I've had to put a video up and it's been taken down. That's like, whoa, it's a shocker. What's going on? Have I done something wrong? Do we appeal this? Do we have to review it myself? And I had a look at it, and I had my partner reading it, reviewing it, and said there was a lot of stuff that was getting said that was like misinformation in a medical kind of form,
But I believe, right, that no, it's not. It's what you're.
It's my belief system.
It's your belief
Not
system.
medical misinformation.
Yeah.
I'm stating.
You're not claiming to be a doctor. You're not claiming to be.
No, I'm
a practitioner.
I'm claiming to be well informed on what they're saying, and then I'm just formulating my own opinion based on the context and the actual history of how we've got to this point. And I like to follow the money and see who's connected to who and what is the end game agenda. So
do you think there's an end game agenda?
Of course there is. Listen, mate, we've just talked about a government document talking about human augmentation, merging us. Like, I don't think there's an agenda, mate. I know there's an agenda. It's not. That's not debatable. That's like saying, is there a light on in here? It's whacking us in the head every morning when we wake up, mate. As soon as you put the news on, that's the agenda. So I don't even think that's questionable. You can read the government's listed the agenda. You want to read United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Agenda version 3. I've got a video on my IGTV with Dr. Shiva. He's got 4 degrees and a PhD in biomolecular engineering or something, yeah? So listen to him say it, then he is a medical expert, he can tell you. And he sits there and reads through this thing that I read years ago, and it's got 17 points of interest, and 14 of them are revolved around unicorns. So, you know, it's pretty obvious there's an agenda, and it's all about transhumanism. That's the end game agenda. That's definitely the long-term agenda with this. So yeah, it's hard to deny, mate. It's undeniable that there's an agenda. And they put it out there. Why did I sit on a podcast in 2019 and tell the two guys that, I think they're gonna try and enforce.
Was that
perspectives?
Yeah, 2 nice kids.
I literally said within the next 5 years they're gonna have rolled out an adult mandated unicorn that links up to some sort of real ID, which would be like your biometrics and your passport and all that. And was I right? Was I bob on? Was it nailed it? I did, didn't I?
Not to the damage.
So and that didn't take any more than me reading 4 different documents which are all endorsed by mega corporations like Microsoft ID 2020. It wasn't called Microsoft ID 123.
Yeah.
It was called 2020, but I think it was called Microsoft 2020.
Because that was the plan for 2020.
It was the year they were going to roll it out. So it's quite low level to figure this out, to be honest, mate. But people haven't got 2 minutes to look at that, mate. You've got Netflix, you've got telly, you've got the news, you've got the sport, you've got entertainment, you've got films. You've got too much entertainment. The word entertainment, well, government. Govern is to manage and control. And mente in Latin is mind. So govern mente is mind control or manage the mind. And entertainmente is enter, go into, tame. What's your tame? Lions, tame the beast. Tame, switch it to tame. And mente on the end. Entertainmente. So it's enter and tame the mind. So we've got all that to contend with. We're getting brainwashed, and people, like, this is what I find strange, right? The stuff what I've realised, like, don't get me wrong, I used to be that person. I was also very against anyone questioning the narrative, because, like, these people who are dead clever have told us we should just listen to them. So I was that person for 70% of my life. Where was I going with that there?
So do you think this is like a whole kind of world organisation, or is it just?
Of course it is. Of course it is. It has no borders. It doesn't do religion. It doesn't do creed. It's not asked about what race you are. It's a multinational, multicultural, multi-religious, multi-everything. It's got factions of every walk of life involved. It has to have to do what it does. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's definitely a global cabal. Yeah. The controllers of this realm, they're not from one country. Like, they're just not, mate.
See, what confuses me, right, and which I've done for a long time, and like I said, I can go down them rabbit holes, which I've done, and our kid's a big one on the Illuminati, and he's gone on that role as well. It's like, what are they going to gain, right? Say, in the long run? Because for me, I just think, well, you get to an age, you're not going to live forever. You're going to get to about 70, 80, and then you're fucking decrepit, you're old, and you're on your way out.
Yeah, but that doesn't make sense though, mate. The way you just explained that, if the Rothschilds just got into banking.
After,
yeah. No, they haven't. Who funded Napoleon?
The Rothschilds.
Okay, so you've just debunked yourself there, mate. The Rothschilds, who funded Napoleon, funded World War One and Two.
What I'm saying
so they're not saying, I'm just going to leave everything, I'm old now.
Yeah.
They're going, right, I want more and more for my kids. And I want them to get more and more, and I want more and more and more.
The individual is like...
Listen, most parents want to leave their children an egg nest, a little nest egg, sorry. So everyone wants to leave their kids something behind. So, listen, people plant trees who know they're never going to sit in that shade. Come on. They do. That's a very simple way to think about it, mate, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's not how the elite work, and again, like I said, you can find...
I always, CT, and I've got to like question a lot of things myself, like yourself, I've got to question things, and I look at things and I think, I wonder why, right? And maybe, now that you put it that way around the kids and stuff, and now that I've got my own child, I want to make sure that I leave...
Of course, him something
where he's going to be at least a little bit comfortable.
Yeah, it's going to help him. Help him through life. So,
but I was thinking, but then I think, why would you want to kind of like leave someone like to control?
Well, what you got to think about, right, mate, is I don't know why Joseph Fritzl kept his daughter in his basement, right? But it doesn't mean he never did it. So, firstly, it's always great to try and figure out the motive.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't let that be a reason for you to deny observable facts. Do you know what I mean? So, if you see someone robbing something, but you can't understand why they'd rob it, it doesn't mean they didn't rob it. They still robbed it. Okay? Now, it's good that you're thinking about the motive, because that's what a good critical thinker does. What's the first thing a detective does on a crime scene? Yeah. Gets there. Alright, he's looking at some observable evidence, but if it's not given away...
I'm just looking at the bigger picture. And the
that's it.
And the motive behind...
Yeah.
The motive behind people's... thinking and what they want to do. Why did you want to leave behind?
Let's think about human nature and the way we're programmed. When you get loads of money, do you not want any more money, or do you want more money? Typically humans, we always want more, don't we?
And that's something that I find.
Did you commit your first crime, make a couple of quid and go, I'm alright now then? Or do you go, right, what's next? What's the next one up? What does a fighter do? He batters one guy, I'm a fighter now, who's the next?
It's never
best?
enough.
No, that's nothing's ever enough for us. And that's how they've conditioned us to be. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? The people who want nothing are the people who are happiest.
It's like most of these millionaires are tight asses, and the way they are, and because they are millionaires, is because they are fucking tight.
Well, look, my opinion on it and my paradigm on it is that these global elites, they're mainly Germanic, or from Germany and Italian. They're called the black nobility. They're not black, but they're called the black nobility. And it's like the Saxe-Coburg-Gothas, which we call the Windsors, and the robber barons, like the Rothschilds were originally called the Bowers, the Red Shields. That's what that means, the Bowers. But again, they just wanted to change the name because they were taking a bit of stick for obviously monopolising the banking industry and stuff. But if you go to the city of London, that square mile, that's not owned by the UK. That's a separate corporation. It's got its own mayor, its own police force. That's part of their little, it's called the Trinity of Cities. That's Washington, DC, which is the military arm, the Vatican, which is the social and religious arm, and then London, which is the monetary controller, financial controller. And they're all independent states, part of this Trinity of Cities. So this cabal goes it's the well documented, all working together back 300 years ago or whatever. So where you say like, why would they do this? Not even one generation ago. I'm talking hundreds of years ago. The well documented, working together. So that's not even a question you can ask, because that's being answered. They're doing it. Do you know what I mean? If all the people running the world today, their parents had no involvement in it, then you'd be right. We'd be asking that question. But no. The royal bloodlines change, or are they the same?
They're the same.
They're the same.
And that's
so you've answered your question. You've answered your question, mate.
You're right, but in a sense where I think about now Harry, right, and Meghan, right.
Harry's not a royal bloodline, though.
Exactly.
Because he's not Prince Charles' son.
Right. So what have they done? They've ostracised them, haven't they? Right. From the royal family.
More pantomime, though. They've had to do that, but yet more panto somewhere.
And my belief is that he's had a part to play in that.
Yeah.
And he knows. He
knows he's playing his role.
So he's playing his role. And there's something, and there's a backhander. You do what you do, and that's it.
Yeah.
We don't need this part of the family in our family because we want to keep it.
Agree.
Do you agree with
I'm
that?
having that, yeah.
Yeah. And that's I'm not ready. Look, you fucking hell. Dean, you're far more intelligent than myself, mate. You've done a lot more research and you've got some brain
Just
man
well
gear
read,
going
mate.
on,
I hate that word intelligence. I've got good memory, which isn't necessarily intelligence. It's just regurgitating information.
Reciting.
I'm just reciting, aren't I? I'm reciting information I've learned, but what I'm good at doing is putting it into context. Everyone can do that, but you have to be well read on the topic. You would sound just as intelligent on something you're passionate about, mate, or something you're well read on.
Well, yeah, and
so we've got to get away from this thing. We're all intelligent, mate.
You put me in front of like kids doing workshops on knife crime, gang culture, prison addiction, mental health, and I'm on fire because I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
So you know what you're talking about in this area. This is your arena, right?
To a degree, yeah, it
this
is.
Is your arena. This is what you know best. Now, when you've got someone like who's not too clues up and that, and they're like, hang on, I've been told this and I've been told that, and now you're telling me this. So it's like a quagmire, isn't it? It becomes a quagmire of like confusion. Like what are we supposed to?
But that's what they want,
right?
But
so what's right? It's good that we're doing this. It's like what's right and what's wrong, and where are we going with what in life?
Well, what you need to do, mate, right, is be the jury. So I spent part of my life just being the defence barrister. Why do we let the jury decide if you're guilty or not guilty? Why do they pick and not the defence barrister or the prosecution?
Because they've got their independence of what's.
So they've got no attachment to the outcome for a start. But what have they also heard?
Both sides.
Both sides. Yeah. Perfect. So what I do now with this information is I'll never only look at one piece of information and I have no attachment to the outcome. So you got people now thinking Trump's like the saviour. That's saviorism. That's another conditioned mindset. Okay, where do we been looking for? And when you realise that, you become the jury. Whereas if you're standing there going, do I believe Dean or do I believe this doctor? You believe in none of us. You listen to what the doctor says. You listen to what I say. You cross-reference it. You check it out. You see if anyone else has got opinions. And then you do the most important bit. You use your eyes, your ears, and your other senses. And you use your observation. You observe the world around you. Right? Then you come back to what you've been told. And you formalise your decision. And that's how you should come to your conclusions. You shouldn't go, well, Chris Whitty is cleverer than Dean on paper. So Chris Whitty's right. That's, unfortunately, that's basically saying all authority is the truth. Well, history proves us that that's wrong. Thalidomide stayed on the shelf nearly 4 years when it was causing birth defects in children. Doctors were telling mothers they were stressed. It's because you're stressed. So, his story repeats itself, doesn't it? Because people are ignorant. People refuse to own the information. So there's a big, like, there was a time where I was not believing the government, but I was taking the first thing that counted, the government's narrative as the truth, because I wanted them to be wrong at this point. I have now invested in the outcome because I was anti-government, but I don't need to think like that.
Well, I think like the nation stand alone, stand like ambivalent around the government's kind of policies and their beliefs. We know there's a lot of untruths, there's a lot of lies that people are seeing through a lot of things at the moment. It's like we've got, like, especially like different governments, Tory governments, Labour governments, Labour's never fucking...
That's all fake, mate. I don't buy into that. I think Jeremy Corbyn and Piers Corbyn's involved with the movement at the minute. I wouldn't be surprised if Piers Corbyn, Jeremy's brother, he's like a meteorologist or something. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Two of the lads on Saturday in the London protest went up, got a bit of me, you're a Freemason. And he's like, I'm not, stop listening. That's just his body language made me laugh. So I don't buy into it. Like, people go, I see people at them freedom marches with Tories out, and I'm like, oh, you don't get it. You don't get it. If we put the Labour Party in, this lockdown narrative doesn't change. This isn't a political narrative, this is a medical narrative, which is why they're calling anything against it medical misinformation. Do you know what I mean? But again, you should be allowed to hear alternative information. If you're a grown man, you should be informed.
If
you're a man, then that's how it works.
Have an informed decision.
Exactly.
So, right, we talk about informed decisions, right? So
informed consent, which is a legal term.
Right. So I'm going to give you information, right? Then you can act on that information and then have an informed decision, right? That's what it's about. So you can give me information. Okay, I can go. Okay, so in my opinion, I feel that this cannot be true, or this is just his opinion or that's information that's being misinformed or I'm being misled. There's a lot of like you on a personal level making a decision that's going to be beneficial to your life, your family's life and the community that you live in. That's how it should be, I think. I don't believe, right, I don't believe in all the fucking newspaper articles and the TV and the news. I used to get up and watch that fucking Piers Morgan, right, just hound the fucking nation, scaremongering, this is happening. I wouldn't fucking go out the door, know what I mean? Everywhere I would keep away from that, don't touch this, mask on, gloves on, the lot, right? I was like a fucking walking bubble. And now it's like, you're lying bastard.
Yeah, shoot me.
Yeah.
Listen, I was scared for a bit. I was having it for a bit. I was thinking they'd released this deadly bioweapon from a lab. They fucking haven't. They're all shite. It's that they want to get you with. There's not enough of them to do it to us. They need to get us to do it to ourselves. And that's the genius of this matrix.
You tell me last time we spoke about that movie Children of Men, right? And I was looking for that because I found that what you were talking about was quite interesting, right? What was your thoughts on that?
Well, I just think it's like predictive programming, the instilling, the telling you a vision. Because basically we're the co-creators of our reality, right? This gym was an idea. You're sitting in a gym now that was once an idea. Me, Aaron and Danny were sitting around table and ours talking about me opening a gym one day. We talked about it having education and community. That was 10 years ago now. 7 years ago, sorry. We had that conversation and now it's a physical building with people in. It's now a community. So everything starts here. The mind it's mind over matter, right? Everyone knows that, right? Everything starts as a conceptual idea in reality. So that if they can program your ideas, then they can make you an architect of their reality. So Children of Men is a prime example of a film where they are dropping in the truth for you, but they're hiding it in plain sight, and they're portraying it in a way where you believe it to be fiction. So you're sitting there watching this thing, thinking it's a fictional movie. Really, it's not all true, but there's pieces of truth in it. So they're setting
there's pieces of truth in everything, isn't it?
There is, but it's all by design. Yeah. It's all part of it.
It's like
FIFA Vendetta.
FIFA Vendetta. What's that? And it was just so.
It's what's happening now. So is that Contagion.
Yeah.
And even on the Contagion film, it's got Contagion. Nothing spreads like fear.
Yeah. Nothing spreads like fear.
Yeah.
But yeah, FIFA Vendetta was just so like it is now. So it couldn't.
It's all to program. Yeah. There's other films that have give the game away. Hunger Games. It's not just FIFA Vendetta. So yeah, they love predictively programming you because they get to use your mind to build their reality. Do you know what I mean? There's a game. I've only seen this today, so I've just read it before. But there was a game come out in like 2010 or something, and like it's about like transhumanism, and they call like. They get nanobots in people and they call it augmentation organs, and just reading it was like kind of like that document the government have released this week, but it was a PS2 game.
So where can you get this document?
Just type in on the government web, just type in on Google, human augmentation gov. Researching's dead easy, no one thinks it is. People mess me going, Dean, have you got this document? Or Dean, send me the thing off the government website about masks. And all I do, I go to Google and go, gov mask. And then send them the page. I need to, but people are so used to it, like I said before, they want
spoon-fed. So it's just about empowering them to do it
themselves. So I should really just say,
empower them.
Say, Google this. Do you know what I mean?
Keep it simple.
We'll teach them how to do it themselves, because like if it's again, if you are new to this and you want to look for a science paper, let's say you're sitting at home, right, and your bird walks in with some fucking product. All you need to do to look on the back, type in an ingredient you want to research, type it in, side effects, PubMed. PubMed's a place where loads of journals are published. You'll come up with 10 journals straight away. It's that easy to find scientific journals. Often you can find loads of contradictory ones. But again, like I said before, it's on you to read both. Look at who's funding them. Use them, observe, and use your brain.
I've really enjoyed this. The first half was quite awkward, I have to admit.
I know, it's because I felt like I didn't know what to say.
And it was horrible, you know.
I was trying to avoid, because I'm dead passionate about this, mate.
I know, and you know what, I wish I had the opportunity to just let you unleash and unload what you want to say.
I know, mate. I don't want to harm your channel. And do you know what, mate? This won't get pulled.
Yeah.
This won't get pulled.
Well, it can't. There's nothing in it to pull
this
on.
This won't get pulled.
And I'll obviously go through with a tooth comb. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just make sure you don't use those buzzwords in the title, mate. Just say Dean Garnett gives his views, current events. That'll do, mate. Most people know what I'm talking about anyway, mate. Do you know what I mean? If I'm coming on a podcast at this moment in time, if someone said to me, do you want to come on, but we can't mention that at all, I'd say no.
Yeah.
I would say no.
Because that's not what you're about, is it?
Well, I mean, right now, mate, with everything that's going on, if this all ends next week, right, and I got an invite onto another podcast, and he said, don't talk about unicorns, I'd be like, do you know what, mate? I'll have a day off.
Yeah.
You're right, let's do one. But I'd just be like, nah, mate, it's World War III out there, in my opinion. I'm an alpha male, mate. Silverback gorillas don't run with the females. They deal with the poachers. The enemy's at the gate, mate. I'm not showing up now. Piss off. Isn't it though? What sort of man would I be, right, if I banged the pot and pan for like fucking 4 years? Almost brainwashing people. Almost, that's literally what my page did. Obviously now it makes sense to people why I did what I did. People realise now, okay, Dean is not a lunatic. He's genuinely scared for other people. He's worried. I'm just worried, mate. That's it. Like, I'm worried about other people's kids. That's the truth. So, you know, I've got people who've approached me now who said, right, I've got 2 kids, mate. One's had all the unicorns, one's had none. And the other one's got well less health problems and is a lot sharper in certain areas. So, you know, people are coming back to me and it certainly helped them. So, like I said, you know, it was awkward, mate. It felt weird, like going, right, I need to not say this.
No.
But anyway, I think we got through it, mate, all right, anyway. But that is just scary that we as 2 grown-ups can't talk about what we're going to talk about.
Exactly.
And the grown-ups at home can't watch it and make up their own mind. They have to, they can't see this information. They just to listen to Chris Not So Witty, Matt Dirtycock, and Boris Nonsense and all the other dirty bastards in Parliament who couldn't give a fuck about you or your kids, mate. Do you know what I mean? And some of these people who hate me, if you ask them, do you trust the government? No, I don't trust the governments. Do you trust Big Pharma? No, they're corrupt. Do you trust the media? No, I'm not that stupid. Don't buy the Sun. But I'm getting me thingy and I wear me. Why? Oh, there's a pandemic. Says who? Those 3 organisations have come together to declare this. I trust the doctors and the scientists. Well, they trust them 3 organisations that you don't trust. And they're the middleman. So at what point are we all going to take responsibility, mate? Because I believe I'm taking responsibility. I'm in court in October. I'm going to do my best to represent myself, only because of the issues it's about. Yeah. It's about issues which I think, these issues, the common man needs to get a grip of. Because if the common man can't get a grip of these issues, we're ruined. We're ruined. If me and you can't if we can't be responsible for defending ourselves, for being outside our house with more than 2 people, what society are we going to raise our kids in, mate? I will go and live in the woods before I raise my child in a world like that. I'm responsible for mitigating my own risk. I can go and buy bifters from the shop, but I should be able to not wear my mask. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't add up.
No.
It doesn't add up. Don't be giving me a free unicorn, but then saying some poor sod can't afford his insulin.
Yeah.
Piss off. Yeah. I've got a bit more sense than that now, mate. There was a time in my life where it didn't, but I've got a bit more sense than that now. And we're all detached from our senses, mate, aren't we?
Yeah. And with that, I always say at the end of a podcast, if there's any words, any pearls of wisdom that you'd offer, I know you've said a lot, but you'd offer a young teen Garnett coming through those doors, or anybody really, just in life in general.
Question everything. There's no question that's too stupid to ask. And never, ever, ever, because I'll never do this again. I'll never give agency of my body or my mind to someone else without practicing due diligence first. There's no one in this world who knows what's best for me more than me. And that's an important thing to remember. Do you know what I mean? Especially now with all the things going on and the current level of coercion. You know, be yourself and do what's best for you and your family, and you know, if you do feel pressured, connect with other people who feel like you.
Brilliant. And
Nice
thank
one,
you
Billy.
with that one. Nice one.